Hi folks, welcome to another set of 8th grade science video notes. Today we'll be talking about land, water, and air pollution, and about how humans can impact our environment. So first off, go ahead and copy down these vocabulary words. Alright, now go ahead and copy these down too. Alright, go ahead and try this one. Alright, last one, I promise. Oh, are you done yet? Alright, let's move on. So when humans overuse or misuse land, it can cause the land to become unusable. When humans or natural processes damage land, we call that land degradation. Humans most actively damage land through deforestation. When we remove trees, whether we're using them to make something, to burn for fuel, or if we're just getting them out of the way to build a city, we disturb the underground root system of those trees and we loosen up the topsoil. When we do this, the soil can be more easily moved by water or wind. We call that erosion. This can lead to the area no longer being able to support plant life, which causes it to be more like a desert. We call that desertification. Now we could be moving the trees so we can farm or build a city. When you think of the city, you often think of buildings, factories, and shopping centers, but it's really the asphalt roads and all of the concrete sidewalks that are the biggest threats to the land. Water isn't able to soak through these materials, so when these cities grow, which we call urban sprawl, the water runs off to a point that's even further away. And we've gotten a lot better about it due to new laws and regulations that prohibit certain trees and plants being shipped across borders. But humans used to have a nasty habit of accidentally introducing invasive species into new environments. Some examples of invasive species are Dutch elm disease, which is caused by a fungus. It was transmitted to trees by elm bark beetles. Since 1930, the disease has spread from Ohio through most of the country, killing over half of the elm trees in the northern United States. Asian carp are another type of invasive species. They are fast-growing, aggressive, and adaptable fish that are outcompeting the native fish populations for food and habitat in much of the Midwest U.S. Not only are they a threat to the fish life in the area, but they're also harmful to humans. They get startled very easily by boat engines, and they're really big and have really hard heads. And they're able to leap out of the water. And a lot of times, when there's fishermen out on a boat, they leap out of the water and they jump into the boat and hit the fishermen. Lastly, we'll look at a plant that's an invasive species. This is the Kogon grass. It's an Asian plant that arrived in the United States as seeds and packing material. Now it's spreading through the southeast, displacing the native plants. It provides absolutely no food value for the native wildlife, and it increases the threat of wildfire because it burns really hot and really fast. So as you can tell, these three examples of invasive species are each very harmful to their non-native environments in one way or another. They often threaten the ability for the native species to survive. Moving on to water pollution, anytime we add harmful things to our water supply, we call it water pollution. There are three major types of water pollution: biological, thermal, and chemical. Biological water pollution could be the introduction of a new invasive species of organisms to a body of water. If that organism harms the aquatic life, that would be considered pollution. Another type of biological pollution is if our wastewater were to somehow get into our drinking supply. Our local water treatment facilities do a really good job of keeping our poo water away from the water we drink. And I, for one, am very thankful for that. However, it's entirely possible that our drinking water could be contaminated with human or animal waste. This is one of the major reasons why you're supposed to bag up your dog poo when you take him out for a walk. The bacteria in your dog's waste could soak down into the ground and become a part of the underground aquifer. Now, our water treatment facilities do a great job of getting rid of the bacteria in the system, but what if you're on well water, eh? Did you ever think of that? Another type of water pollution is thermal water pollution. This is when you add abnormally warm water to a usually cool body of water. When you do that, you can harm the aquatic organisms that live there. This most often occurs due to factories or nuclear power plants that use water to cool down their reactors. And then they dump that warm water into the nearby river or stream. The last type of water pollution is chemical water pollution. This is any time that harmful chemicals are added to the water supply. These chemicals could range from waste from a factory or fertilizer from a field. In an industrial setting, large factories might directly dump chemicals into a body of water. There are rules about what kind and how much of the chemicals are allowed to be dumped into the water, but factories don't always follow the rules. Sometimes, farmers think that they're super lucky that they got their fields fertilized the day before a big rain. And while it's awesome that they won't have to track up their fields spreading fertilizer through the mud, the runoff after a big rain can carry the nutrients in the fertilizer to a nearby water source. When these extra nutrients are added to a body of water, we call it eutrophication. This might sound good because nutrients, right? But an increase in nutrients can increase the amount of algae in the body of water. And if there's too much algae, it makes it harder for other plants to grow. And if there's smaller organisms that feed on those plants, then there'll be less of them because they don't have enough to eat. And if there's less of those smaller organisms, the larger organisms, like the fish that we eat, won't have enough food. Our last type of pollution is air pollution. This happens anytime one of our 5 pollutants are put into the air. So first, we have particulate materials. These include tiny particles like dust, pollen, ash, and smoke. This is the most noticeable type of air pollution because most of the time you can see it. There are natural sources such as wildfires and volcanoes, which are responsible for 10 times as much as humans are in the world as a whole. However, in highly populated areas, humans create 90% of the particulate pollution. There are sulfur oxides, which naturally come from volcanoes and dust from dry soil, but humans contribute to the amount of sulfur oxides in the air by burning fossil fuels like coal and oil. These sulfur oxides, along with ground-level ozone, make smog. As molecules of sulfur oxides go up into the atmosphere, they can react with the water vapor that's in the atmosphere. When they do that, they create sulfuric acid. If that sulfuric acid rains down, we then call that acid rain. When acid rain occurs, it can damage plant life and stone statues or buildings. Nitrogen oxides are primarily put into the atmosphere by burning fossil fuels. When these nitrogen oxides react with the water in the atmosphere, they can create nitric acid, which is also a type of acid rain. We also have carbon oxides, like carbon monoxide, which come from the incomplete burning of fossil fuels. Like, for example, when a car engine doesn't use the right mix of gasoline and air when it combusts, it creates carbon monoxide. This is bad for us because it has very negative health effects. Instead of having negative health effects, carbon dioxide is harmful in a slightly different way. We have a layer in our atmosphere of greenhouse gases. We call these gases greenhouse gases because they act like a greenhouse and trap in the sun's heat. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. If we get too much of it, our Earth is going to get too warm. If we have too little, it will be too cold. So it's important to have just the right amount of carbon dioxide, methane, and other greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. Lastly, we have volatile organic compounds, otherwise known as VOCs. These are compounds that don't break down very easily, but they have a very strong odor and they evaporate quickly into the air. When we think of VOCs, we think of things like gasoline and rubbing alcohol. But plants are actually the largest source of this type of pollution. The smell that we get from pine trees or flowers or freshly cut grass, that's caused by VOCs. So in order to keep our planet healthy, we must remember these types of pollution and find ways to reduce them. It's important for us to use what resources we need to live happy, healthy lives, but not to overuse them so that our children and grandchildren will still have resources when they get older. This is called sustainability. We can maintain our environmental sustainability by reducing our dependence on non-renewable resources and finding ways to use renewable resources to our advantage. It's also important to engage in conservation efforts. in order to preserve our natural environment and the resources that come with it. Conservation involves reducing our waste and using our resources wisely. One way to reduce our waste is to recycle. If we repurpose old resources for new things, we can reduce the amount that we have to take from our environment. Thank you all for watching and listening today. I hope that the information you learned from these notes will help you to be a good steward for our Earth.